Yeah, welcome to the midweek stove. What's so funny? Presented by the General Insurance with Harold Reynolds here in Studio K, Lauren Shahadi, Keith Costas, packed show. A lot of baseball news percolating overnight. On this program, we're going to have Will Leach on with us, who has written a column that's pretty interesting. Long-term extension candidates, one for each team.
I like that. We'll see what he has to say.
Yeah, Do-Young Park is going to join us.
Big Georgia fan, by the way, Mr. Will Leach.
Oh, that's right. Well, we'll give him a chance to thump his chest.
He'll still the worst game ever, but okay.
Yeah. Do-Young Park's going to be along to talk about the Twins now that it looks like they've reunited with Carlos Correa, which is unbelievable. And coming up a little bit later on, we'll have press conference coverage, Harold.
Oh, man.
Yes, Rafi Devers' press conference after his long-term extension with the Red Sox. And we're going to get into the Red Sox, I think, in earnest today because of some interesting news that we're going to get from J.P. Morosi. In fact, before we get to J.P., it's interesting to take stock of this Carlos Correa thing and think about the journey that fans have been on, that he's been on this offseason. And I hate when people say it's my personal journey, but it has been quite an odd path.
What you got? I know you're up to something.
It's this. I mean, it's right. We started with this. $350 for a long 13-year deal. 13 years was the term of the contract with the San Francisco Giants, and a huge.
All right, let me lock in on the financials.
Yeah, lock in on the financials. There, it was a big deal. That one went away after the physical. So then we landed on the Mets for a longer deal, slightly fewer dollars, still a good deal, though.
Oopsie daisy!
Yeah, but where we've really landed, and fast forward to today.
The Twins have a new explosive
That's
weapon.
right, and thank goodness that soundboard clip can stay relevant for the next 6 years, because Carlos Correa, at not quite the princely sum that he had with the Giants, but still a very healthy $200 million contract, is returning to the Minnesota Twins. It's got to be a weird experience for Carlos. He essentially cleaned out his locker, said goodbye to everybody, thought he was going to one coast, thought he was going to the other. It's weird.
It feels so good.
I mean, I think, you know, that kind of press statement, whenever we get it, is going to be pretty interesting.
Well, yeah, it's when it went from 12 years or 13 years or whatever, this is the one thing that's puzzling to me, is how you end up with the Twins with 6 years. And it seemed like no other suitors were in at that point in time. And I just always believed that if they got to the point where they said, you know what, it's going to be 5 or 6 years, and that was out there, teams would have flocked.
I knew you were making a case, a compelling case for the Dodgers,
I mean,
among others.
the Dodgers, the Red Sox, the Yankees, 3 powerhouse teams,
Right.
and the Braves, who are going to probably have Von Grisham. But that's 4 of the top teams in the game that do not have a shortstop.
It's interesting,
Carlos
man.
Correa can't play to lead them to a title.
Yeah. Well, let's ask JP about it.
That's right.
Leading the league in information is JP Morosi. And I guess we'll start there, JP. Why not more suitors after the thing with the Mets broke down?
Good morning. Quite an off season. I would say this: Carlos Correa, first player in known pro sports history to sign a 9-figure deal with 3 different teams in the same off season. We've never seen that before, right? So I'll say this: Andy Martino reported on this as well, that there were teams that had inquired to the Boris camp after the Mets deal fell apart, beyond just the Mets and the Twins. So there were more teams involved. We don't know exactly who they were and for how many years, but this was not just, according to Andy's reporting, a Twins or Mets only scenario. And Harold, to answer your question, 6 years was, it seems to me, the higher end of where teams were comfortable once the full extent of the ankle issue was known. There was a report from Michael Marino that the Mets' final offer, indeed, was 6 years. But with the caveat being that the Mets had stipulated that he would have to take a physical after every single season.
Oh, wow.
To then guarantee the following year. That was the stipulation written into the deal. It would have been the same AAV as the initial deal that was agreed upon, but every year, for it to be guaranteed, he had to take a physical.
Does that mean that would be like a one-year deal?
Series, essentially, it gives the team escapes after every year based on not liking what they saw in the physical, and it's understandable that the Correa camp didn't like that. I get that.
I get that totally. Hey, so JP, Hammond came out with a report yesterday that the first thing, the ankle was totally cleared already. So that physical hurdle was done. Did they do that prior to maybe settling the deal? Or how was the timing on that?
Harold, it's a great question. I believe the answer is yes. And obviously, we have still not yet seen the full press release announcement from the Twins, so there has to be at least some level of caution in saying this at the moment. But remember this. I think the key thing is that there's been now imaging done extensively on Correa's ankle this offseason. So now multiple teams have had a chance to look at it. The Twins doctors, it seems to me, were comfortable signing off on the ankle for 6 years, but obviously not in the same way that the Mets and the Giants were asking about at 10 years. And there's an intuitive reality there that the ankle appears to be durable for 6 years out. At least the projection is that from an actuarial standpoint, but not for 10 years. And I want to really draw your attention, Harold and Matt, to one key part of this deal. That yes, it's a 6-year deal, but then there are team options for all the years beyond 6 to get to 10, where it becomes a team option that's guaranteed if he hits the thresholds of plate appearances. Now, the number that's really important, I know it's a bit in the future, but this is an important detail here, is 575 plate appearances for the 2029 season. That would be year 7 of the deal. Now, Correa has reached that threshold in each of the last 2 years, as you see it there, as games played. He has reached
full screen built.
We do have the full screen build, Harold. 575 plate appearances is what would be required for him in his age 34 season.
Wow,
now,
that's a lot.
Remember, that is a lot, because I went and looked at last year's numbers. Of all the players in Major League Baseball, no shortstop and no third baseman who is 34 or older hit that number in Major League Baseball this past year.
Wow.
And the only ones who even got close to it, who even started 100-plus games at third or short, were Brandon Crawford and Josh Donaldson, who notably did not have very good offensive seasons. So when you consider where the actuarial tables go, there's a certain wisdom in the Twins structuring the deal this way, because honestly, in today's game, shortstops and third basemen are not this durable or productive at the age that Correa is going to be in year 7 of this deal.
A perfect, albeit perhaps unintentional, segue into our next talking point, and that's what's happening in Boston up the middle for them. When it was announced that Trevor Story would have an elbow procedure, in fact, it happened earlier this week. Some fans were caught off guard by that. After all, he was the contingency plan when Bogarts walked away. What's the prognosis for recovery? What's the timeline until Red Sox fans will see him back on the field?
Matt, unfortunately for the Red Sox, the timeline is unclear. No one really knows if or when Trevor Story is going to play in Major League Baseball in 2023. That is a very disturbing headline indeed for the Boston Red Sox. The surgery was announced as an internal bracing of the UCL in his right elbow. We could, in layman's terms, call it a modified Tommy John surgery with a shorter recovery timetable. That